Today on the podcast, I am talking all about raising a child with high support needs and autism. I had an amazing conversation with Eileen Lamb. She is the founder of the Autism Cafe. I had shared a video of one of her children, Charlie, on my Instagram, and people just really loved that video. It really resonated with them. It was showing Charlie when he was younger using an AAC device, and then showing him now he's older. He's 11 using the device. And I think it really just gives people hope. And that's really my purpose here, and really my life's work, is to help all autistic learners find a way to communicate with the world. Eileen Lamb is the author of All Across the Spectrum and Be the One, and she's also the founder of Autism Cafe. She is an author and she has a blog, and she's into photography too. Her aesthetic on her Instagram page is so beautiful, so lovely. She is the podcast host and director of social media at Autism Speaks. She's actually born in France, which I love to connect with that because my dad, Ben, is bilingual and he was a French teacher growing up. So I just love her accent, love talking with her. She now lives in Austin, Texas, hook 'em horns, with her two sons, Charlie and Jude, and their sister, Billy. And she shares the ups and downs of raising two children with autism, one with profound autism, and she herself is on the autism spectrum. Get into this conversation with Eileen Lamb.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Welcome to the Autism Outreach Podcast. We have a wonderful guest today, one that I'm very excited to meet in person and talk with about everything that you share online and your writing and things. Welcome to the show, Eileen Lamb. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I have been a fan of yours just because you share such important information about autism and really share about your family's journey, which is really hard to do online. And I've seen some of your posts about just how that's hard and some of the comments that you get. I've had my online business for 7 years. And so I've been on this journey of sharing, caring about what other people say about my content, blocking people immediately, all the things. But your Instagram, especially your Instagram, is just so aesthetically pleasing, and your website is just amazing. So kudos to you on all of that, because it's like, oh, and then I was on your website last week, just kind of doing a deeper dive to prepare for the show. I love your blog too, because it's beautiful, but it's good information, but it's in short, bite-sized chunks. Like I think you just did one about back to school and with Charlie, and I was like, oh, it was very poignant. So thank you for sharing. If you haven't checked out Eileen's stuff, please do, because I find you to be an inspiration. Can you share with us your journey into the world of autism? Like how did this all kind of come about for you?
Yeah, of course. Well, it all started with my oldest son, Charlie. Charlie was diagnosed with autism when he was not even 2. He was 22 months old. Around 18 months, we started noticing some signs of autism, which at the time didn't know were signs of autism. I was a first-time mom and everything was new to me, and I was trying to teach him French, and I had a feeling that maybe he was not talking because, it's hard to learn 2 languages. Yeah. And I had excuses for everything he was doing. But it turned out later on that those things were actually signs of autism. He had a speech regression, which was really the one thing that got me thinking, that doesn't seem normal, So I got him evaluated at first by early childhood intervention. And he was behind in every area of development, which was cognitively, he qualified for OT, physical therapy, speech therapy, all of it. He would spend his days lining up toys and
Was he fussy growing up? I love his video. I shared a couple of videos of his on one, I think, in Instagram, where you show him when he's very young and he's using his device. And then you show him when he's older and he's using his device. And I think that video gives a lot of people hope for their child who's maybe not verbally communicating. But what was his disposition like when he was younger? Because you show videos of him and he does, he has high support needs. There's a lot of things that are hard for Charlie. Was he kind of fussy as a young when he was a baby, or was it just the lack of communication that kind of was the early sign for you?
He started being fussy around 18 months, which again were like, well, terrible twos, right?
Yeah, right.
But as a baby, he was so easy and independent.
Oh, he was.
So like, hindsight is 2020, like he didn't need much comfort from us. And
yeah.
So yeah, but around 18 months, like everything would set him off. If we had to transition from one activity to the other, like he was lining up his toys. If I was taking one out of the line, like he became very rigid and there were a lot of like triggers for him. So he became very fussy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then he started with early intervention and then did he go to public school, like a special education preschool? Or I know that, and I think probably why you've come across my post, I know that you utilize applied behavior analysis and maybe he's in a school program that's utilizing that. But when he was younger, did he go to special education preschool, or kind of what was his educational journey?
He started ABA right at 2 years old, 25 hours a week at first, then 40 hours a week. We did try when he was 3. There is in Texas a program called PPCD. It's basically special education preschool.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave that a shot when he was 3 for a year, but they didn't have much experience with kids with like high support needs. And Charlie had started using an AAC device. And so that didn't really work out. So then we put him back in full-time ABA.
Oh, okay. Okay, wonderful. It's great that you were able to get him a device too. I think that video that resonates with people so much is everyone asks me like, where did he get that device? What device is that? What application is he using? Because I mean, we know that like the Prolo Quota Go or whatever, I think that's maybe what he was using at the time. It starts out with different cells and they can go larger, or, you can start out with a lot of buttons, you can hide some. But I think AAC is this kind of area, even for speech language pathologists, where if you haven't worked with kids who use AAC devices, you can feel really overwhelmed and not sure about how to help a child get one. So did Charlie start using his AAC device pretty early, or?
Yeah, from 2 to 3. So when he was in ABA, they tried teaching him PECs, and that he got the hang of it, but he was clearly like getting frustrated with it, and he was doing it like it just wasn't for him,
Yeah.
I'll always be thankful for PECs because that was the basis. I think that made the transition to using an AAC device so much easier. But he wasn't reaching for it, and we wanted him to be independent in communicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his BCBA actually suggested we start using an AAC device. I bought an iPad and the app Proloquo to Go, and that was it. That was the beginning of it. And his BCBA, which I know there's some controversy, like should a speech therapist be the one
Right.
teaching?
Yeah.
But there's always been a lot of collaboration. The only difference is that speech therapy was 3 hours a week, ABA was 40. So his ABA therapists, RBTs, and BCBA are the ones who like taught him mostly and taught me, and that's how we got started. But I really believe that because of the early PECs that Charlie had in his life, he was able to pick on the AAC Proloquo to Go so much quicker, because within like weeks, he was already communicating with it, which was incredible.
That's amazing. Yeah. And there is, I know you're knee deep in the online world, so you understand there is that controversy. I actually started this course last year called Intro to AAC. And so it's parent friendly, but it's also for BCBAs can get CEUs for it, because that is the case. Like sometimes with the way that the insurance now is, ABA will be covered potentially more time than speech therapy usually. And based on if the BCBA is comfortable to try to do an AAC assessment to get something started for communication. That's really cool that you think that PECS was help with that transition. I actually had on Lori Frost, who's a speech language pathologist and one of the co-creators of PECS. So I'll have to share this episode with her. She'll probably be really happy. They're in 18 countries, so they're helping a lot of people. But I know that sometimes people talk about how it's limiting, but it can be really helpful for a lot of people. So thanks for sharing that. I really do love your blog, how I was saying, and your social media content. I know you're on Instagram. You have a beautiful website and blog. Do you do TikTok too? Do you guys post stuff over on TikTok? I can't remember.
I do. I don't love it. I do.
I know. She made a face. I make a face too. Like, I don't know. I like Instagram better, but so I guess what prompted you to start your blog, to start I know you're an author and you've written books and things like that too. But what prompted you to share about autism specifically?
Well, I never wanted to start a blog really. I just started sharing about Charlie's autism journey on Facebook to keep my family and friends in the loop about Charlie's autism,
Yeah.
It was a way for me to educate family and friends at first on Facebook, like on my personal page. It's how it started.
Wow.
And then someone asked me to make one of my posts public.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my personal page. And that went viral. And then I had other people like telling me, oh, you should create a public page. And I did. And then it just kind of like snowballed from there. So it really started on Facebook just for friends and family and extended to the entire world.
Yes. Now you have so many followers on Instagram I like Instagram sometimes. I don't know. I'm trying to put myself on a social media behavior plan. But yeah, I do like Instagram. You can learn a lot there and you can make connections with people and, grow and scale your business too, because that's important. But yeah, the information that you share is just really eloquent. But I can tell that you're an author because I can tell just by, how you post on Instagram. I think people what you share really resonates. And I think you give a voice to people who can't say those things so nicely as you say them. So I think that's why it has grown. I love that it just organically grew and somebody was like, can you make that public? And then that went viral. That's cool. I love that. So you are an author and have written some books. Can you tell us a little bit about your books? You have All Across the Spectrum and then Be the One. What are those books about?
So All Across the Spectrum is about autism. It's more of an autobiography, I want to say. It's like my journey getting diagnosed with autism after Charlie was diagnosed with autism, growing up in France, being undiagnosed, and also about the social media world and how, the spectrum is broad. And that's something that on social media, people are starting to fight, that, you hear things like everyone is equally autistic, which okay, but there are levels of severity. My autism, talking to you right now, is so much different from my son, who's 11 and has no sense of danger, is nonverbal, doesn't understand that swallowing screws is dangerous,
Yes.
So that's what this book is about. It's really like the contrast and, parenting a child on the spectrum, being autistic myself, it's not always easy. So that's this book, and it includes my photography because, it's a way for me to express myself is really through photography and of course through writing, but it's more like, it's a nice coffee table book, easy read. And then my second book, Be the One, is more about life, surviving life's ups and downs. It's not about autism, it's about anxiety and, how to get out of your comfort zone. And it's the style is called self-prose poetry. It's kind of like, trying to help others who are feeling alone, not feeling so alone. And I have a third book coming out in 3 weeks called And Yet Here You Are, which is very similar to Be the One.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys should check those out. Oh, I love that. Yeah, All Across the Spectrum. That is really hard. I do here on my podcast, Autism Outreach, I try to have on speech therapists, BCBAs. I have on an OT. I had on an OT once. People who have autistic adults, and then also, families who have an autistic member. But yeah, there is a lot of fighting over on especially Instagram, from different camps of people. And it is just some days I'm like, oh, wow, look, I just hit 50,000 followers. That was like a milestone we hit that I was like really working on. I'd love to get to 100,000. I don't know why. That's just kind of my life goal. But with that comes a lot of outrage, and people that have a lot of opinions, which is so hard because I know I started sharing about what I share because really I worked in non-public programs and more specialized schools with kids who, did have severe autism and were not able to communicate, even though they were in speech therapy and special education for, 18 years, until they met somebody who had more of an applied behavior analysis focus. And so I see the power of that in the sharing, but it is hard sometimes. So those sound really great. So what advice would you give to others who are raising an autistic child?
Don't go on social media.
Yes. Don't ask about what is ABA. Don't post that in a Facebook group.
Don't mention the puzzle piece, the color blue, ABA,
Yes.
and you'll be fine. No, but for real, it's just social media is a double-edged sword. Is that in a way it's amazing because once you find your people, you can really get a lot of support, and it's going to help you feel like you're less alone. And there are people on this journey who have been here before and who can help you, who get you. You can get advice. But then there's the other side of the coin, right? And it's that there are a lot of controversies. Honestly, every word, every therapy, everything has a controversy behind it. And what I always tell parents and people in the autism community is that you got to remember that when autistic people are sharing their views on social media, they're only speaking about themselves. They're not speaking for the entire autism and autistic community. No one can speak for the entire community, I cannot, what I'm telling you right now is my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. And I always want to make that clear when I share on social media, because you will see a lot of people say things like autistic people hate the puzzle piece when it couldn't be further from the truth. I'm using that as an example because you see that a lot. Like people like to argue about symbols and terminology, but at the end of the day, autistic people are their own unique individual. And I think that got lost in the social media world because a lot of them are trying to speak on behalf of the entire community. And also it's kind of sad because those who have the luxury of being able to self-advocate on social media are also trying to erase the voice of those with higher support needs, like my son, Charlie. And parents have a voice in the online community, and don't let anyone tell you that you don't have a voice, that you shouldn't be speaking about your child if you're not autistic yourself, because a lot of the time you're going to be the only person who can speak for your child.
Yeah. And I know that there's this organization that's focusing on severe to profound autism. And they actually had a conference last spring. I didn't go to it, but I think it's here on the East Coast.
I was there.
Oh, you were there? Oh, cool. I'm like, you should keynote that. But yeah. Oh, was it good? I bet it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a speaker there. I think you're the Profound Autism Alliance.
Yeah.
There's also the National Council on Severe Autism. I'm a board member too. So.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, because, my whole career was spent, I did work in a public school, but I always worked in these non-public programs, is what they call them. But they're ABA programs. It was a long time ago, and it was schools that were specialized for kids who usually had unsafe problem behavior, and they could not be in a public school. And that was where I was a speech therapist, and then also became a BCBA. But yeah, I think that if you don't work with kids who have those types of high support needs, you may not understand what that environment really looks like and what those daily things might be that you're, trying to support your son with. And it was really interesting though. I had this video go viral on Instagram, and it was pretty simplistic. It was about, should we say, autistic person or person with autism. It was, just something like that. And I did have somebody maybe ask me a question. Then they sent me a DM. They said they were autistic adult, and they had said something mean about ABA, but then they really kind of wanted to know about it. They said, which I thought was interesting, like, I want to have a family, I want to have kids. And, just because I think my child might have autism, I'd like to learn more about ABA. And so I thought that was interesting because I don't think it's something that they would have actually commented like on a public comment, but they did send me a message about that. Because I think on my page, what I try to do is share about this is what ABA can look like, and this is what speech therapy can look like, because there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there, and it's hard. It's hard to share about that in an online space. So thanks for doing that. Yes, it's hard for parents. When I have parents on, I'm like, please be careful with what you ask on social media, because it's really difficult. Okay, wonderful. Well, that was really interesting. I definitely would urge people, if you haven't looked at your blog, you had shared this really kind of poignant blog about Charlie and his back to school, which I thought was really lovely. And so does he goes through a specialized program? Is that, when I lived down in Austin, I was always like, because I worked in Leander, and I think there were 35 schools at the time. We moved back in 2011, so it's been a while. And I just remember thinking to myself, where do the kids go to school who have behavior that is hard for them to be in a public school? There weren't a lot of, ABA was just starting out, and it wasn't covered by insurance and things like that back in the day. So are there specialized programs that have more of an ABA focus now in the area?
Well, there is a public school that is just for children with severe disabilities, but that's where Charlie is now, but they only give it until everything else has been tried and it failed. So we got to that point last year. That's why Charlie is there now. But before that, he was in a life skills classroom, which, might work for some kids. Charlie's needs are a little too high, but it's an option if you want your child to be like in public school, but in a, special education classroom.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It was really nice to meet you. Hopefully I'll see you at a conference someday. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at the Autism Cafe, in one word. And you can find me on TikTok at Eileen.Lamb. I also have a blog called theautismcafe.com.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eileen. It was really nice to connect.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.